Welcome to the future of money. Come with us on this journey into the world of Bitcoin, blockchain and crypto projects. You're going to meet the trailblazers. These people have changed my life and they may very well do the same for you. All right, welcome along everybody. We're coming to you from Singapore in the early hours of Saturday. Dunstan, the lightning man, welcome along. Now, let me clarify, he's not the lightning network man. This is the man that's been hit by lightning twice.
One time, actually.
On that note, people, welcome along. We aim to summarise the key news of the week for you in this show. I think Dunstan and I both agree that a lot of the media in this space, I wouldn't call journalism. It can be very, very much propaganda. And we'll attempt to bring you the big stories with, I don't know whether we want to call it inside knowledge, Dunstan, but certainly you've said a few things to me over the last few months that have transpired to be the case. On that note, clearly the most important story of the week is that Satoshi has turned out to be a Colombian drug runner for the Escobars.
Well, he's as much Satoshi as Craig is, actually. So, yeah, the viewers might actually want to go and read up and check out on the Escobar phones. And
That's the gold tinfoil one, is it?
Oh, yeah, that's the awesome part.
Okay. All right, that's not our headline of the week, people. Looking at the amount of interest it got in some media outlets, it certainly was for a lot of people. We won't talk about who Satoshi is in this chat. I have had that chat with Dunstan many times, and it's been fascinating, but that's for another video. Moving swiftly on to certainly what I consider the main story of the week. It'd be great to hear your thoughts on this, Dunstan. Fidelity have released a report. I've actually read through it with great interest. 23 pages of it. Key takeaways for me, and then I'll get your thoughts. 36% of institutional investors currently invested in digital assets. Obviously, we've both had a bit of exposure to the OTC space. I think you much more than me. What are your comments around quite a large, significant percentage? Thoughts?
Well, let's put it this way, actually. When it comes to institutions, right, the largest of all the institution players are actually the sovereign funds, the sovereign wealth funds. Yep. And 3 years ago, the sovereign wealth funds have been quietly accumulating Bitcoin or investing in cryptocurrency mines. However, it's just in the recent news that the institutions have started investing in mines and so on. But the sovereign wealth funds were the ones that actually moved first, and that's number one. Number two, also with the fact that even Grayscale is in, but the investors are not investing in the asset itself. They are investing in representatives, or for what we crypto people like to say, a wrapper of the asset itself.
Paper Bitcoin.
Yeah, and they actually paid like $2,000 for Ethereum, man.
Yeah,
and they are not getting the real Ethereum. That's just crazy. Just get it from me, man. I'll say it to you for $1,000.
Okay. You can get it off me for $750. Yeah, so look, on that note, I mean, I suppose the interesting stat on what you've just raised there is a doubling of investors via futures markets, which is really what we're talking about there primarily. What kind of struck me as really noteworthy here was the fact that a lot of them cited their interest in the space because of the non-correlation to other markets. Now, clearly, as we've seen, obviously the price of Bitcoin moves around dramatically, but it's absolutely been tracking the stock market. I don't think there's too much doubt about that. I'm a firm believer it will decouple at some point. So I wonder whether there is some sort of crystal ball action there from the major players, understanding that we do maybe sit on the precipice of some, I wouldn't even call the stock market a market anymore. I think it's just simply in la-la land these days. So any thoughts around that particular statement? I don't actually have it up in front of me here, but it's certainly in this report. And that they actually cited that non-correlation has been a major reason that they would be looking to invest or already are invested in this space.
Yeah, and actually, if you take a look at the stock market movements and the Bitcoin movement, I don't talk about the other cryptocurrency assets, but I just talk about Bitcoin as a whole because it affects all the rest of the other cryptocurrencies. Sometimes they do look like they are correlated actually, but I don't think that it's a correlation. It's just that they happen to move in a similar direction in this current period. Because all the way from like for the past 10 years, there have been zero correlation. Even up till last year, actually, with the stock markets, there was no correlation at all. It's just recently, like when prices are tanking.
Yeah, this is true, actually.
Yeah. So it looks like there is a correlation. So which is why I'm not really sure. Like I know that a lot of traders are gonna say that what I said is bullshit, because of all the tools that they use and so on. But are we seeing a correlation where there isn't? Are we hoping that there's a correlation? And that's what I'm thinking actually. Yeah, because actually when it comes to Bitcoin, right, it does tend to move on its own. It's independent. And with that, the other cryptocurrencies actually do follow its independence in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, just to clarify what I'm saying here, I mean, I'm talking about a correlation to the S&P and to the Nasdaq, which I think it is tracking. I mean, obviously, we saw those markets crash significantly last night, and lo and behold, the crypto markets followed it down as well.
Yep.
Personally, I think it will decouple ultimately when we see the traditional markets invariably collapse, and that clearly is going to happen. Followed potentially by a housing and then banking collapse. At that point, I think
that would be awesome. Actually,
I think at that point we'll see a decoupling of this particular asset class. I mean, you've only got to look at. I just wonder whether really where I'm going with this is: are the institutional players coming in effectively as a hedge?
I believe so. Actually, although our market cap is still considered extremely low, but minuscule. They are coming in. Yeah, it's minuscule. Actually, we are smaller than Apple.
But looking at these percentages, Dunstan, I mean, there's absolute clear growth in the space. I mean, we've obviously seen it behind the scenes in the OTC space. But yeah, I mean, look, moving on, and the other news items here, if you stay with us to the end of the show, we're sort of going to tie it all together for you. But the other story that we feel is extremely important to discuss here is obviously this news out of Coinbase. I think you're going to be rather passionate on this one, Dunstan. So can you bring the audience up to speed what's gone down there?
Yeah, I believe that I'm one of the few that actually started this hashtag called Delete Coinbase. The moment I read that that Coinbase is gonna sell tech to the Feds actually, or to the U.S. government itself to do analysis and so on, I feel that it's totally going against the nature of what they were built for actually. Coinbase started as one of the regulated exchange in the space, so that we have a safe haven, we have a place to trade, we have a place where people can actually believe that they won't be scammed, and there will be no risk of exchange owners running off and so on. So so I have to give Brian that actually, but right now that one step looks like a slap in the face of the entire blockchain space actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this an evolving story? I mean, has that actually happened? Or I know there was some reports swimming around, and I've heard this chat about Coinbase for a number of years. The hardcore Bitcoiners haven't been fans of Coinbase for a while, or at least at least since 2017. what, is there action that you would advise anyone to take at this point, or is this something that they're looking at doing? Where are we at exactly with this?
Well, so that's the problem that we are having now. Actually, the U.S. government has been acquiring assets, important Bitcoin infrastructures like Coinbase and Blockstream. So what's going on is this, so with them acquiring, they would have their own agenda. They would seep their agenda into these important infrastructures of the blockchain space. Now, I personally have no issues with Coinbase whatsoever, but that one move has just stated the stance that they would be taking towards the whole space. I mean, just imagine the number of people they have their KYC information onto Coinbase. And if the US government or any government decides to pay Coinbase or decides to use regulations to push them, and all our documents are going to be there. And Bitcoin is supposed to be pseudo anonymous. I'm not saying it's fully anonymous, but if you tie a name to an address, so technically it's no longer anonymous in that sense. And somebody has infringed on our privacy actually.
Okay.
And who is it? Is it Coinbase or is it the regulators? Yeah.
I guess, there'll be a lot of people watching this that probably don't quite understand what we're talking about here. And I suppose in super simple terms, the way to describe this, I've heard you in the past talk about, there's effectively two streams with Bitcoin. There's the number go up, and then there's almost this sort of opt-out alternative financial system. I've certainly wrapped my head around this. The interesting thing for me is how many people really do understand that, and how many people care. I think your average person in the space is here for number go up, and they're probably leaving their Bitcoin on an exchange. I would almost be certain that's the majority. And obviously, since I've been in the space, the war cry has always been, not your keys, not your Bitcoin. I think this is still probably lost on most people. And I think we should probably move into another big piece of news this week that really centers around that exact issue. What's happened in China? There's reports that a number of, thousands of bank accounts have been frozen. You can tell us a bit about that.
Well, the Chinese users, the Chinese traders have been trading actively on exchanges. They have been trading actively on wallets and even in the dark pools itself, doing OTC trades, so that the price isn't affected in the main markets. Because they are trading like thousands of Bitcoins at one go and so on, and many of them, at least a minimum, their transactions are hundreds of Bitcoins like at all times. So with this, right, with the exchanges working with the government, working with the Chinese government and so on, right, technically it's, in a sense, the government's declaring a small little war on us actually. I mean, just imagine, because you have transacted Bitcoin, they say that, your Bitcoins were in mixers, or, your Bitcoins were tainted. And therefore, you have been involved in illegal activities. But come on, let's take a look at all the fiat in the world, man. Every one of the fiat has gone through, almost all of them have gone through drugs. They like most banks were involved in money laundering.
I don't know if you haven't noticed, Dunstan, but it looks like most governments are trying to get rid of cash.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, and now they have to get rid of cash.
Yeah, and they're coming after Bitcoin at the same time. So look, I guess it's an interesting one for me. I've been in the space probably. I mean, you're here for over a decade now. For me, there's always something new to learn, but certainly the understanding now that Bitcoin, effectively, if you are in control of your keys, then you really do control an asset. I don't think people realize that the fiat currency, when we say fiat, we mean your local currency. Wherever you are in the world, that's what fiat currency is. It'll surprise you to learn that legally, when it's in a bank, it's not actually yours. I mean, yeah. So here you have an opportunity to own this asset, where bizarrely, this is something I've heard Bitcoiners talk about for a number of years, about the strength of Bitcoin being permissionless. You can spend it when you want. It's censorship resistant. Spend it on what you want. And obviously it's unconfiscatable. I think probably Tone Vays coined that term, or seizure proof would be another phrase to use. There are three key characteristics of this asset class. Obviously we hear it being spoken about as digital gold, or store of value. I would probably say it's a speculative store of value at this point, but those other three attributes, that aside, remain, and they're important. They're important for people to understand, especially with what's going on right now. So, we've looked at this Fidelity report, Dunstan. We've looked at what Coinbase are doing. We've looked at what's happened in China. The three all relate, don't they? And really, for me, I'd love to hear you comment on what I consider the biggest issue right now, and that really centers around, are all Bitcoins going to be the same here? If something's gone through a mixer, are you going to be able to deposit that and turn it into a yield-bearing asset? The likes of BlockFi have turned what tainted Bitcoin is the term used away. Could you give us your thoughts around what is going on right now around that mixing issue, around one Bitcoin being different to another Bitcoin if it's been tainted, so to speak?
Yeah. So in order to answer that, right, I think the biggest fundamental thing is for the viewers, for the audience to actually understand there are two separate markets of Bitcoin out there. I might actually be the first person that actually talk about these two markets. While after I talked about it 1 or 2 months down the road, people started talking about it. So these two markets are these. There will always be the Bitcoin versus fiat market where Bitcoin has a certain value, maybe it's now 9,200 and so on in USD, and that's the normal institutionalized market. That's the normal layman, the place where they want to play at. But there is also another market, the market in which we determine the value and we determine the worth and the freedom to transact, actually. Because I always like to tell people, like in Venezuela, they can't transact. Their fiat money is worthless. And only when a person reaches that situation, right, then they would actually find a solution. And Bitcoin was the solution they actually found to transact within one another, even though they had this thing called the Petro. They actually changed the Petro to Bitcoin, actually. Now, so these are the two separate markets. So the world is going through a financial shaking, and people still don't see that there is a war that is coming to the people. And while the people are still like messing around, I'm still gonna get my job and so on, they still don't understand this. We are going into an Orwellian society extremely soon.
Oh, I think we might be here. Unfortunately, I've kind of I've had a couple of days off from watching the news. It was just getting a little
and you're correct, actually. So this is what is going on. So in context to this, right? So when we talk about tainted Bitcoin, this is actually a form of social programming of the blockchain space, of the people. Of people who understand Bitcoin, understand blockchain cryptocurrencies, and people who don't. What do I mean by a social programming? Is this: we are slowly being programmed to believe that because a Bitcoin was used in a transaction that was either fraudulent, like in Silk Road, in the dark web, and so on, or it has gone through a mixer, and because the banks and other financial institutes choose to take a stand that they will not allow that sort of transaction to go through, right? But what about us in the blockchain space? Are we gonna allow them to say that, that should be the way this Bitcoin is gonna be tainted? What if just now we had a conversation, Sean, you were telling me that what if somebody transferred that Bitcoin to you in payment for something, and you didn't even know that it was part of a mixer, or it was in a fraudulent transaction? Then how? You can't even use your Bitcoin then in these financial institutions. This is where we need to step up, you see. We need to push back and to say that, there's no such ridiculous thing as a tainted Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's something that really came across my radar big time when the guy from Dropit was arrested for running a mixing service. This is somebody that was sponsoring sort of Peter McCormick's show. I was quite surprised when that happened, and that sort of really put it on my radar. And he's facing, I think, 30 years in federal prison for that.
Right. But what about the owner? He's the CEO of a mixing company, and he got 30 years. But if we take the same regulators and we use it for banks and financial institutions that have been involved in fraudulent activities and have been involved in or even like transacting money for dictators and so on. We have money in Singapore.
Obviously, that mixing function, I think, will exist. And I've heard people on other blockchains talk about, well, of course, you'll have a mixer, but it'll be a regulated scenario, a registered company doing that, because in effect, what.
Sean, can't hear you actually.
How about now, Dunstan?
Yeah, now you can.
Yeah, I got a little exuberant there instead of waving my hands around. I'm half Italian. It happens sometimes. Sorry, I don't know if you're allowed to say that sort of thing anymore. I'm vanilla.
Yeah,
don't want to offend anybody. Sorry, half Italian.
But you can't be racist if you're one of them. Actually.
Oh, okay. But I'm only half.
Half is fine.
Yeah, all right. Good. Okay. Where were we? So yeah, look. For me, it's a huge issue. I mean, obviously, for the average person out there, I guess where we're going with this is, even if you're buying some Bitcoin for the simple fact that you think it's going to significantly appreciate in fiat dollar value, that's fine. Just don't leave it on exchanges. Be in control of it yourself. There's plenty of content on this channel and on our website that'll show you how to secure it properly. But really, we're looking at a much bigger issue in this conversation, aren't we, Dunstan? And it has massive ramifications for the future of digital assets, specifically Bitcoin. I mean, everything is different here. Where do you think this is going?
So maybe let's take a look at a war that's going on with the people in that sense. So let me drag the scenario even further down. We are facing an Orwellian situation right now, during the COVID times and so on. But what's going to be worse if every one of your transactions are tracked? And what's gonna even be worse if somebody can come and tell you that this thing isn't of value, and you can't touch it. I mean, this isn't a drug that affects people. And just imagine, we have countries in which their economies have melted down. And what did their Federal Reserve do for these people? What did their government do? Nothing was done for them, actually. But just to say, oops, I'm sorry, you are now worthless.
Yeah, Dunstan, on that note, there's a lot of, well, not a lot, but some quite... Okay. Simon Dixon is someone I rate very highly in the space, and I'd encourage everyone to follow his content. I've listened to him talk about the central bank issued digital currency, and there's actually a number of other people echoing these thoughts as well. this would be a scenario where they let banks fall over. They effectively issue a digital dollar. Whatever you held in those banks that had failed, you download the wallet and you receive that digital dollar. So you're not effectively losing any money, but you then get into a situation of, I guess, like what we see in China now, where, as you say, everything is tracked. Your passport can be shut off if there's a dispute over any tax payments, etc. It would be a very controlled scenario. There would also be benefits to it. It would, in effect, open up a huge array of opportunity around businesses, plugging in APIs to a digital dollar. The issue with it would be around your self-sovereignty, your personal freedoms. And I guess really where we're going with this conversation is Bitcoin is going to allow you to keep those. That's the way I potentially see this playing out. It could take a couple of years, but I think Bitcoin in that respect has to be protected and managed. I don't know if managed is the right word, but what's best and worst case scenario here for you, and what should people be doing to ensure?
Well, I think the worst case scenario is that sooner or later. I don't even see it as the worst case scenario. I see it as the scenario. Sooner or later, we are going to be in a situation where we are told what we can spend on and what we can't. Credit ratings will be imposed on us, and everything is on the record. I mean, this is like one gigantic system in that sense. And with that, right? What about those who want their own freedom? Are you going to choose to opt out? Are you going to choose to stay in the system? And that's one fundamental. Some of us might not even be going to be given a choice, actually. For example, if the economy in that country fails, what choice do they have? But are we going to wait till our economy fails?
Well, in that scenario, there is no system.
Well, Bitcoin is the system, actually.
Yeah, true. Well, no, absolutely. Yeah. That parallel system. And I think it's important to note here that to be thinking about Bitcoin in this way certainly isn't implying any revolutionary barbarians at the gate type scenario. It absolutely doesn't have to be like that, and I don't think it is. I just think people need to understand what we basically have in Bitcoin. Be in control of your own keys. I think it's institutions coming into the space and obviously the sophistication around the custody offerings now. It's new territory. We know a lot of the key players in that space personally, and there's some good stuff happening there. But yeah, it is concerning when you see Coinbase up to these sort of antics if it proves to be true. Hopefully not.
We even have a situation in where the Pentagon actually has like a scenario where what if
it was the other important piece of news this week, wasn't it? Absolutely, yeah. That one made me chuckle.
Yeah, so actually, yes, they see that so even their simulations state that this is a potential threat, actually, but it's actually not a threat to us. It's actually a threat to their power, the power that they have accumulated so far, the financial capabilities, and even the regulations that they impose on us. I mean, if the regulations were fair and accountable. Let's say, for example, on the cryptocurrency space, one of us have been jailed for 30 years while we have banks that have been involved in similar situations, but yet they were only fined and the CEO got away scot-free. Now, what is this? Yeah. So if there's a lack of accountability on that part, I believe that, we should figure out a situation where we potentially can opt out of that system.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And, I've had numerous discussions, right from a couple of chats with John McAfee, who I see is launching his own privacy coin now. Look, at the end of the day, Bitcoin, if you really, if there's anyone watching this that thinks we're talking about Bitcoin needs to be anonymous so you can get up to all sorts of nefarious activities, it's absolutely not what we're saying here at all. In fact, it's not a well-suited technology for that in the slightest. I think there's, people don't seem to understand that when they hear a discussion like this, and no doubt there's going to be a whole heap of dislike clicks from certain certain projects that I know followed my content and get quite riled up on this topic. That's not what I'm saying at all. Look, we could talk for hours on this, Dunstan, and we promised ourselves we would do a short, sharp, punchy news summary. Yep. So I think we let's do more of a deep dive into this, because I do think it is the biggest issue facing this asset class. It warrants a long form chat, and if there's anyone out there that would potentially like to come on and debate even the other side of things, if you don't agree with anything you've heard here from Dunstan, get in touch with me, and we'll get that going. But I don't really, to me, there's not a huge amount to debate on this topic. Well, actually, what am I saying? Of course there is. There absolutely is.
Gonna have our boobs and bears, man.
Yeah. So, look, what have we covered? We've obviously, you don't think Satoshi is a Colombian drug runner? Tick. We looked at Fidelity, tick. Coinbase, bad, tick. Pentagon and war games, and obviously all these accounts getting frozen in China. Apart from the Colombian story, those other headlines are all extremely interrelated. So we hope that we spoke some sense. If you're new to the space, maybe some of that might have gone a wee bit over your head, but stay with us and come back for some longer form content on the topic, Dunstan. It's been great talking with you again.
Awesome. See you here, Sean.
Yeah, it's getting to the early hours now, as people can probably tell by my croaky voice. Yeah, well, how about we get back together next week, and yep, we'll maybe expand upon what I think's a hugely important topic. I'd love to also talk to you and get your thoughts around, obviously quite big moves. We've got BlockFi teaming up with Poland, the biggest miner of Bitcoin, to open an office here in Singapore. The interest that can be earned on your Bitcoin and Ethereum, and this very much ties into the conversation we're having here, is quite significant. I think that'll be something to go into a bit more detail on in our next chat, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Okay, I was going to ask you what you're doing for the rest of the day, but it's the very early hours here, so I assume you're off to bed.
No, actually, still figuring out, so still going to be focused on our coding and also building up tech, actually. So
yes, yes, that's the other thing that we've got in the pipeline, where we had you on to assess a project the other day. Yep. Thank you for your time there, and I believe that you may be going to help those guys out. So if you didn't see it, we did a show with doc.com. I'll be hosting that sort of content fairly regularly, where we're going to invite some projects on, look at their tokenomics, where they're at, hopefully projects that have actually been around for a while now, ones that actually raised a bit of money during the ICO boom, and what have they done? So please, actually, any suggestions of who you'd like to see on the show, stick them below for us, and we'll make a joint call on who we get on. But where I'm going with this is, I know you're working on your own project, Dunstan. So yep. I think it'll be, once we've had you effectively critique and grill a few projects. I'd like to get some people on to obviously do the same. So to you guys. So, we'll find some pit bulls that want to get on here and get stuck into your project, Dunstan, and see if you can show us what it's all about and get a bit of, maybe not debate's the right word, but that's the sort of content I think people will find quite fascinating. I've had a look at what you're doing. I'm very interested to learn more. So that's coming up, people. So subscribe to the channel. I can't. Where's the camera? There it is. It's down there. Subscribe for more and smash those likes. Smash them. Smash them. Dunstan, don't get hit by lightning a third time. Go to bed, and we'll speak very soon.
Take care, Sean. Have fun.
Thank you, sir. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, cheers.
Cheers.